37 years after the question had surrounded him, Andy Gibb's secret was at last uncovered, and the answer proved to be even more tragic than anyone would ever have dreamed. Andy Gibb was born Andrew Roy Gibb in Manchester, England, on March 5, 1958. He was the youngest of the Gibb brothers, a group of siblings whose name would eventually become the most celebrated name in international music talent through the mind-boggling popularity of the Bee Gees. Although he was not part of the group's founding members, brothers Barry, Robin, and Maurice, Andy did not miss out on anything. It was as if from the start his destiny was to make an outstanding niche in the music world. His youth was spent between England and Australia, which the Gibb family had migrated to in the mid-1960s. This move deeply influenced Andy's early life, providing him with a distinctive mix of British and Australian culture while fostering the beginnings of his artistic career. Right from his earliest days, Andy had a natural, practically innate talent for music. His youthful charm, charismatic stage presence, and warm, expressive voice foretold the celebrity he was to become. By the mid-1970s, his career as a professional musician had gained momentum, driven not just by his undeniable gift, but also by the precious mentorship and songwriting prowess of his brothers. He issued his first album, Flowing Rivers, in 1977, and it produced 2 #1 songs in the United States, I Just Want to Be Your Everything and Love Is Thicker Than Water. These weren't chart-topping songs. These were pop anthems for the ages that filled the romantic spirit of the time, with Andy earning the love of millions of fans across the globe. Having the talent to pour raw emotion into a silky falsetto and heartfelt delivery made Andy one of the most unique voices of the late 1970s. By 1978, Andy's popularity had reached dazzling new heights with the release of his second album, Shadow Dancing. Its title song became his third straight U.S. #1 single, an unprecedented feat that ranked him among an elite category in pop history. Overnight, Andy was made into a teen idol. He was not only respected for his music, but also for his clean, good looks, effortless charm, and genial personality. His explosive ascent was also propelled by celebrity television guest shots, such as appearances on the Love Boat Solid Gold, and even a stint as co-host on the American music show Solid Gold. Andy's love life was also given front-page treatment in the press, with stories about him dating glamorous women of the day, most notably Dallas actress Victoria Principal. But beneath the glamour, Andy was struggling with more sinister demons. By the spring of 1987, after all those years of struggling with substance abuse, he checked himself into a drug rehab program once again. It was not his first attempt at being sober. Most of his adult life had been marred by addiction, one ongoing struggle that had derailed his career and relationships. But this time, Andy seemed truly committed to reform. He left rehab with a newfound sense of optimism, believing that he had finally left his self-destructive ways behind. Hopeful, he dreamed not only of personal redemption, but of professional rebirth, and he started making plans for a comeback in the music business. He hoped to drop a brand new album in 1988, recapturing the momentum that once had seemed unstoppable. By June of 1987, Andy had been back in the recording studio, weighing expectation against a jittery sense of urgency that this was his last opportunity to solidify his legacy. He wrote from his heart 4 new songs, infusing them with his own strife, feelings, and fortitude. Among them, Man on Fire captured the vehemence of his inner conflict and insistence that he would overcome them. Although Andy never lived to witness its release, the song did surface after his death in 1991 on a Polydor Records anthology, providing a poignant glimpse of the magnificent career that could have been. Yet another song, Arrow Through the Heart, would be Andy's last recorded track. Emotionally wrenching and haunting in its words, the song had the burden of his internal conflict. It was subsequently used on VH1's highly praised show Behind the Music and officially released in November 2010 as part of the Bee Gees Mythology box set. The fans could finally relate to the very last chapter of Andy's artistic life. They were not written alone. They were with his brothers Barry and Maurice, whose relationship with Andy was as much familial as it was musical. The three had been close since they were children, and these final recordings were a testament to their continued closeness. They were recorded initially as demos with engineer Scott Glazer, who was able to capture the raw emotion and intimate vulnerability of Andy's performances. The demos found their way eventually to Clive Banks, a UK executive with Island Records, who was the first to spot Andy's comeback potential. Although Andy never signed, officially, the label made concrete plans: a spring single, a summer single, and a full album to come. For the first time in years, industry people believed again in Andy's return. Sadly, it was a dream he was never to witness come true. Andy's career accomplishments were still astounding. In addition to his #1 singles, he created other unforgettable songs that left a legacy on the history of music. Tunes such as An Everlasting Love, Desire, and Our Love, Don't Throw It All Away were favorites among listeners all over the world. The songs proved his capacity to express the entire gamut of human feelings: happiness, yearning, sadness, and present them sincerely. His success was acknowledged by the music industry when he received 2 Grammy Award nominations at the 20th Annual Grammy Awards, an excellent achievement for an artist of his age. He was also nominated for 2 American Music Awards, which attested to his huge popularity in America. Andy's charm was not limited to his voice alone. His innocent good looks and charismatic appeal turned him into a cultural symbol of the late 70s. Years down the line, VH1 would place him at number 82 on their 100 Sexiest Artists list, reminding people of how he drew fans not only with music, but with presence. Nevertheless, while in America he became an overnight sensation, Andy found it difficult to get the same kind of recognition in England, where he only had a single top 10 hit, An Everlasting Love. As the 1980s progressed, the stresses of stardom, inner doubts, and the unforgiving nature of celebrity culture started degrading Andy's career. More and more unreliable, he began missing shows and professional engagements. His addictions worsened, and his career prospects vanished. He was dropped from stage productions such as Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat and the Pirates of Penzance, and he was let go in 1981 from being a co-host on Solid Gold. Each blow further hammered his career and self-esteem. Financial issues soon followed. By 1987, burdened by debts and poor judgment, Andy went bankrupt. It was an embarrassing public collapse for someone who had appeared to be headed towards boundless success. In his personal life, Andy's story was equally complex. At 18, he married Kim Reeder, an Australian woman he met in Sydney. Their relationship was strained from the start by youth distance and Andy's rising fame. They divorced less than 2 years later on January 15, 1978. 10 days afterward, Kim gave birth to their daughter, Peta, in Sydney. Andy's career commitments kept him away, and he met his daughter only once in 1981. Peta spent her childhood in Australia, going by the name Peta J. Andy Gibb. She had a special interest in animals, especially Staffordshire Bull Terriers, and became an acclaimed dog breeder and subsequently a show judge in New South Wales. In 2008, she wed Matt Weber, constructing a peaceful, satisfying existence far from her father's tempestuous fame. Andy's love life changed again in 1981 when he met actress Victoria Principal in a guest spot on The John Davidson Show. Theirs was a much-publicized romance that crossed the boundaries between television and music, and they were for a time one of Hollywood's hot couples. Then the tragedy occurred. On March 10, 1988, only days shy of his 30th birthday, Andy Gibb passed away. The cause was listed officially as heart failure, an unusual tragedy for one so young. But speculation and rumor continued for decades. Some thought his decades of drug use had finally gotten the better of him, while others thought there were more profound, more sinister motives. For decades, the truth was hidden. His brothers wrote guardedly of his battles, and friends hardly ever provided information. The world was left with pieces interviews, memoirs, and hearsay that gave a one-sided account. 37 years later, private correspondence, personal accounts, and stifled interviews came out. Doctors, friends, and professionals finally spoke out, letting the fuller truth out. The truth was not a tidy tragedy, but a much more complex narrative. Andy's illness extended beyond drug dependency. It encompassed severe mental and emotional problems poorly comprehended in the 1980s when mental illness was stigmatized. More tragically, disclosures emerged that Andy had come close on several occasions to full recovery. There were times of sobriety, spurts of creativity, and flashes of actual hope for the future. But they were fragile, broken by loneliness, by the strain of living in the shadow of his brothers, and by disappointment from broken relationships. Ultimately, the enigma of Andy Gibb was not a conspiracy or a solitary dark secret. It was the result of years of quiet pain, misdiagnosis, and wounds that never properly healed. The tragedy was not merely that he died. It was that his death could have been avoided if he had lived in a time with greater knowledge, greater support, and greater medicine. When finally the truth came out, it was worse than anyone could have imagined, because it was not scandalous, but because it exposed the extent of pain that had been suffered by a man who had caused so much happiness for others. Andy Gibb was more than a fallen pop star. He was a sensitive one, an artistic talent, and a life cut prematurely short. For those who adored his music, the resolution of the mystery brought not solace, but bittersweet regret. The world lost a voice that might have bestowed it with decades more of beauty.